Sam, the Rendazzler Rendazzo, and Columbus faces a fierce fight over zoning. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. Court files released in the past couple of weeks display the very friendly relationship the state's top utility regulator had with one of the state's largest utilities. The filings are part of the state's bribery and theft case against former utilities chairman Sam Randazzo. First Energy executives Charles Jones and Michael Dowling also face charges they paid money to Randazzo in exchange for favorable treatment. Here are some of the more interesting pieces of evidence. Prosecutors say Randazzo texted this meme to First Energy executives and lobbyists. It has the then PUCO chairman dressed up as a superhero. There is an image of Randazzo wearing a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer costume next to Energy executives and a lobbyist. And after House Bill 6 passed, First Energy's then CEO Chuck Jones sent this meme to Randazzo, portraying executives, a lobbyist, and Randazzo's image on Mount Rushmore with the words, HB6, F anybody who ain't us. Jesse Balmer, what do prosecutors say these memes and texts show? Is it more than just guys being guys, horsing around?
Yeah, so I mean, the underlying charges are that the First Energy executives gave about $4.3 million as part of a bribe to essentially win favorable decisions and assistance from Sam Randazzo, who also helped on this bill called House Bill 6, which gave a bailout for two nuclear plants then owned by a subsidiary of First Energy. And so that's the allegations. And then a lot of these kind of details and photos and memes that came out as part of the Ohio Attorney General's investigation are just showing how close Randazzo was with these fellows, in particular people that he was tasked with regulating and, you know, holding accountable, but we're going to Christmas parties together.
But Andrew, he had secret deals before the First Energy thing came about, according to prosecutors.
Yeah, so they allege that, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to know how improper this was, although they were sued over it, but in the late 2000s, there was, they called it a side deal with an energy company. And basically the way that it works is that if utilities want to raise rates, they have to get approval from the PUCO, which is the entity that Randazzo eventually was put in charge of. Yeah. And individual companies are able to basically make large payments to settle and essentially they agree to the energy or the price hikes in a way that maybe normal consumers can't. And so prosecutors kind of allege that some of the lessons he learned from doing that, in which he eventually described how he would keep it secret to avoid kind of public scrutiny, informed his later conduct as described in the indictment.
Terry.
I'm proud to say I've never, to my knowledge, met or dealt any with Randazzo, but I remember back to the 1990s when electric dereg was happening, when he was representing different people and involved with people like Enron, remember that failure, and pushing some of the things. But he's always been known as a little slippery, and you might call it one-stop shopping. He put himself on representing one client, and then he'd go represent the other client on the other side, and that's called a conflict of interest, and I don't know how you get away with it. But to me, the big question is, how do you get a $4.3 million check when you don't send them an invoice? And the lawyers at First Energy said, no, we can't or shouldn't do that. How did that happen?
The boldness of it, Sam, just at this point, we've been covering this now for over 4 years, and we've heard the tapes, we've seen the text, but the boldness of the relationship, these memes, it's just still stunning.
Well, not really if you think about it. These arrogant guys were above the law and they thought they could do anything they want. There are two sides to my comments. One, why couldn't the Democratic Party take advantage of this? That just blows my mind. They usually get in the office statewide with a scandal, didn't take advantage of it. Second part, I grew up with guys like this. No, they're on top of the world. That seems to be a high that comes with the so-called power. They get so intoxicated, they just lose all senses.
I'm going to answer Sam's question. The Democrats haven't taken advantage of it because Householder got to be Speaker because half the votes came from Democrats, and the first person to hold the Bible and congratulate him was David Leland, the former Democrat Party state chairman. So there's a tangle that the Democrats have a little bit of you-know-what on their hands over Householder and how he got there.
Yeah, that was a Democratic state rep who sent out a tweet with, or whatever they call it now, with the picture of Randazzo with the cape, and the replies all pointed out that that Democrat had voted for Householder himself to be Speaker. So it could be part of it. The witness list came out, also prosecutors' witness list, 61 names. Not a whole lot of surprises. Many of the names, Jesse, were in the Householder trial. They testified, or at least thought they were going to testify. We're all waiting to see if Mike DeWine and John Huston's name would not be on there, but DeWine's former chief of staff, her name is on there.
Yeah, so Laurel Pressler Dawson and then her husband, Mike Dawson, who is a former First Energy lobbyist, are both on this list. And there is some question about how early and to what extent Laurel Dawson knew about this $4.3 million payment and how much she conveyed to the governor as they were vetting Sam Randazzo to be appointed to this position of power at the PUCO. And so maybe that's something we'll learn at trial if they end up being called. This is a list that also includes current and former PUCO commissioners and the current CEO at First Energy.
Was she called during the Householder trial?
No.
No. Do we expect her to be? Is there any chance the defense, Andrew, could call the governor, lieutenant governor, to find out what they knew and when they knew it?
Well, we don't know what they might do at this point because they haven't disclosed that. But I think what's interesting about this largely is that for the Householder case in federal court, federal prosecutors made a point of saying that the governor's office was not part of their investigation. In this case, they're being called as witnesses, but still the fact that there's the potential for them to be brought in the stand, we're all going to be interested in what she has to say, whether there's more angles to this. So that it just kind of opens up a whole different, line of questions that point to the governor's office.
This is going to move faster than the federal case has moved. It's not hard, but it will move faster. Is there any chance that this doesn't go to trial, that they strike a plea deal, the Randazzo and the First Energy executives on the state case?
Well, the big question is Chuck Jones, the former CEO of First Energy, what does he know? What did he say? Because I think on the list of witnesses, it indicated there were transcripts, and I don't think those transcripts have been made public, but it's interesting what questions were asked, how did they probe, and what were the answers, because what Chuck Jones, the CEO, and what Dowling, the former VP with First Energy, what they might say might tell you a lot.
Yeah, but if they haven't struck a deal to this point, you have to figure they're going to go forward. They may.
But sometimes deals are done right on the edge of the courthouse before the trial starts, so to be determined.
All right, the vote is still months away, but the politicking is certainly underway, and likely so is the deal making early next year, assuming Republicans maintain control of the House, which is probably a given. Current Senate President Matt Huffman will challenge Jason Stephens to be Speaker of the Ohio House. Last month, Huffman said some people want him to be Speaker, and he said Republicans alone should elect the Speaker of the House. Stephens used Democrats to win the job last year, and this week he told reporters that Huffman should pay attention to running the Senate instead of trying to run the House. Andrew Tobias, it seems like it's getting a little more snippy between these two.
Yeah, and it's also kind of coming out in the open. I think there's been, widespread understanding from people who follow this stuff closely that this has been the case. But now that the primary election is over, Matt Huffman is acknowledging that he's doing this, and so that's kind of drawing out Jason Stephens. And so what we're going to be looking for is how this sort of dynamic affects legislation moving forward. There are deadlines that the legislature has to meet to pass a capital budget. There's legislation like the potential for changes to the marijuana statute that voters approved in November and things like that. And so, ultimately, it matters. Basically, these two people who are vying for the same job also have to cooperate in order for the state government to function, which is a really fun dynamic for us to watch.
The word we got this week is that the capital budget, I don't know if it's in jeopardy, but the negotiations were not going well between the House and the Senate. Is there any chance that this is the capital budget that doles out a lot of money to local projects? The local projects happen to be in state rep and state senators' districts. They want the money to come out.
Yeah, I mean, negotiations have not been going well on many things for many months now, and so it's not surprising that this particular item is also part of that debate. But these are projects that benefit local communities that state lawmakers can run on against their opponents in November, and so I imagine some form of a capital budget is going to get done. Just how much infighting we're going to have to face to get to that point is the question.
Yeah, Terry.
Well, they'll get it done. They've got till the end of January to get, or June to get it done, so there's still time. But the best thing I'm going to predict early is this coming Wednesday, the governor's going to do a State of the State message to the joint session, and you're going to have the Speaker and the Senate President together on the rostrum, and everyone's going to be watching to see the various facial moves, the body language between those two and the governor. It's going to be tune in TV to watch.
Be like Kamala Harris and Speaker Mike Johnson during the State of the Union address. It's not uncommon to have folks who don't get along, but it is uncommon, Sam. These folks are in the same party.
Yeah. This is a bit of history I've never seen before, where you have so much power, absolute power, that you fight among yourselves. And it's hard to believe that they can't negotiate. The pie is big enough. I wonder why they can't negotiate.
So Matt Huffman's, apparently he has suggested on his podcast that he's been talking to Democrats. Andrew, is there any way Democrats support him, especially after his fierce opposition to, the abortion rights amendment that passed in November? He's pretty conservative, pretty unwilling to compromise on those issues.
I'm telling you, politicians will do anything, so I'm not surprised.
But if you listen to Allison Russo this past week, she made pretty clear, and if people who have talked to her convey to me, the gap between Russo and Huffman is wider than the Mississippi from Minnesota down to Louisiana. They don't get along at all.
So Andrew, no, Stevens still might get Democrats, but Huffman may not.
I think ultimately Democrats, their leverage that they have is to decide this, and there's sort of things to not like about pretty much any of the Republican leaders who there might be. So I think they'll probably be pragmatic about it. So I wouldn't say there's no chance, but like Terry said, I don't think Matt Huffman is Allison Russo's favorite person by any means.
All right. It has been a tough spring for Ohio's school districts looking to raise taxes. Across the state, of the districts that asked voters in March to approve new money, only 17% prevailed. In Central Ohio, 6 districts, including the Olentangy schools, saw their tax increase requests fail badly. Observers blame rising property values that have increased property taxes without a vote. So the districts also asked for higher taxes in a primary that drew more Republican voters than Democratic ones. Sam Gresham, levies seasons come and go. Some are better for schools, some are not. Is this a blip, or is this part of a long trend?
No, this is a calculation that started with a famous case called DeRolf, and how schools, equations for funding schools were put together. This has been a path that has been laid a long time. And as Malcolm X used to say, the chickens have come home to roost.
So Terry, you think this is a longer-term trend?
Yes, and part of it is, if you look at the Olentangy district, that was malpractice to put it on in the March ballot with a heavy Republican turnout. Maybe we'll probably put it back on in November, but there's a lot of people we forget between the property reappraisals and the value increases. That's one of the factors. But also there's a lot of people and families out there who are feeling tight when they got to go to the grocery store and when they got to go to the gas station, and they're feeling the economics and they're feeling things are out of control in property taxes.
At the state level, is there any, they haven't had the full-blown reform legislation, but they've worked around the edges and increased funding to schools and tweaked the formulas a bit. Do these levies, if they keep failing, will they force state action?
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this point, and it's also hard to tell with this particular election because the reappraisals just came out because there was so much more Republican turnout. Like the School Board Association said that about 69% of levies passed in 2023 and 73% in 2022. So it does seem like this most recent election was a bit of a outlier, but look in 2024 in the fall and see if we're in the same spot, and maybe you start to see a trend.
I often wonder if it's part of a long game strategy, Andrew, where a school district asks for a big number in the primary in one election and then comes back with a more reasonable number the next election. Say, we've learned, we've found ways to to save money, and we've asked for more money instead.
So I'll say, like in the Olentangy schools example, that's a really expensive strategy. I saw some of the fundraising that was going on with that. It was kind of more reminiscent of a political campaign for a candidate or something like that. But their options are limited now. Republican lawmakers passed a law that basically banned schools from being able to pursue levies in most instances in special elections when the turnout's lower, it's different. So their options in the future are going to be these primary and general elections, and things are different in off years, but it's just more likely they're going to have to face electorates like the one they have right now.
Mike, also, the idea is school systems are big deals to developers and to tax base for suburban communities. You can't make too many mistakes on that, or you're going to run into problems. Fundamentally, the state has not given its appropriate share for public education in the state of Ohio. Now, whether they're going to go back and do something about it, whether they're going to be forced to do something about it, or the system's going to collapse, something has to change.
How about vouchers? The expansion of the voucher program. Now almost every Ohio family can qualify for a voucher. Many of the students that are taking the vouchers now were already in private schools, and some of these suburban districts especially. But will that eventually trickle up to the levies if more and more students take these vouchers?
Well, part of the problem, Olentangy is a little bit of an exception, unusual thing in the state of Ohio, because there's such high growth. And unfortunately, to agree with Sam, the whole formula for school funding is troublesome because there's some districts that have shrunk dramatically in enrollment, but they're still getting the same level of money, even though it's reduction. And then Olentangy has grown, but hasn't got corresponding things. So it's hard to make a perfect thing that works in all 600 plus districts.
Olentangy did have an opposition campaign. I think the sign said it's okay to vote no, which I've seen before in other levies, in other districts. But it used to be you never had organized opposition to a levy. It was always there, but it was kind of quiet.
The money's big now, Mike.
Is it more
Yeah.
palatable to be opposing the kids, Sam?
Well, not only that, there's no ATM to just fork up the money to do that again. I never thought I'd hear myself saying that, but I don't have endless cash, but I'm still supporters of the schools. I don't want anybody to get missed on that. Yeah. But I understand how people get upset. I only have so much money.
I agree with Sam. Economics 101 plays a factor.
All right. Let's get to our last topic. There is nothing that boosts television ratings like a long discussion about city zoning. But if you live next to a planned high-rise, or the farmer next door sells the property for an apartment complex, zoning discussions become very interesting very quickly. That could be what's in store for the city of Columbus in the coming months. Faced with a housing shortage and an out-of-date zoning map, city leaders are overhauling it. It's the first major citywide zoning change in 70 years. City Hall critics worry developers are driving the decision-making. Residents worry the current character of their neighborhoods will change. Terry Casey, experts say we're going to need 200,000 additional units in the region in the next 6 years. And the city says this first phase of the plan will create roughly 90,000 units. Things have to change, right?
Well, things have to change. The question is this the right plan? And as you mentioned earlier, I live in Clintonville, and one of the areas mentioned, do people in Clintonville really want a 7-story building or more with no parking required? And then who knows whether the people who want to build that are going to come in and want a tax abatement too. So this higher density with no parking, that thrusts the parking, because people still like their cars to get to the jobs and everything else, and to the side streets where residential lives. So there's some serious questions and some serious doubts out there. But again, no parking required and 7 stories, that adds up to something I'm not sure everyone likes.
The city officials hope that folks will shun their cars and use public transportation with the higher density. And along this first phase is the main corridors: High Street, Broad Street, Cleveland Avenue, to name 3.
That's not going to happen, first of all. And
the bus, people are not going to take the bus, or light rail if it ever comes.
Well, hopefully one day we'll get light rail, but that's a cultural change. That's just not facilities change. People have to get in their head, I have to use this. What I'm concerned about is we have, by default, been named a community to take all the apartments that industry needs. What about middle class housing or luxury housing? Are we just giving that to the suburbs? We don't want that tax base. We don't want those types of homes where people can live in the city of Columbus and have a nice 2,500 square foot house that's reasonable. Who elected our officials to give that up?
I'm seconding what Sam said, because all you're going to do is drive more development, because there's a lot of people that might want a twin single where there's a little bit of a backyard where the kids don't have to go up and down an elevator on a 7-story building.
Jesse, is this just, I mean, High Street in Clintonville didn't look like High Street does now 100 years ago.
No.
And probably the folks who lived there 100 years ago would be mortified to see what was there now, a gas station or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. People in Clintonville were already mortified by that. But isn't this just part of the evolution of a city, and change is hard and it's just part of the price you pay?
I mean, I think they need to do something to deal with the population growth. I think there's something like 3 million people they anticipate being in the greater Columbus area by 2050. So especially with Intel, there's going to be more people. And so where do they live? What types of housing do they want to live in? And are their neighbors okay with them being there? So these are all things that come up when zoning happens. And I think it's going to be a robust discussion over the next few
This
months.
is probably one part of my resume people don't know. I used to work for the city of Columbus. I used to do zoning. I used to do the writing. I used to do reviewing of it. I was a practicing urban and regional planner for 7 years. You are absolutely right. Neighborhoods goes through cycles, and it depends on the time of that cycle where you catch that neighborhood. Now the problem becomes, in that cycle, there will be high vacancies in apartments. That cycle requires that to happen. The question becomes, what happens to all those apartments when they're no longer needed?
Andrew, I mean, Sam's point that this is the city of Columbus, but suburbs are facing this high density push. You know, developers want to put condo complexes, townhomes in vacant areas. Is there any way to offer incentives for the suburbs to jump on board this train as well?
Yeah, honestly, this is not an area that I have expertise in, but I see that the suburbs are building these types of apartment buildings too. It's the kind of thing that you don't necessarily associate with places like Hilliard, but we see the growth that kind of necessitates them. So on some level, you know, the market's going to drive where these things are built, but ultimately it's up to city officials to make a more orderly plan about how it goes, so that you don't have people like to point to Morse Road about how that kind of came up and now it's kind of difficult to drive in and stuff like that. So that's, you know, people need to make sure that it's planned properly. So how that works, you know, that's kind of out of my pay grade. But
So, Terry, it's been 70 years since the city has done this. Developers say it takes too long. You have to go through the area commissions. This would really kind of marginalize the area commissions. Is it just too bureaucratic in some areas to do even the simplest project?
Well, the system we have now is not good or perfect and needs to be improved, but there is a balance, and I want to second again some of Sam's comments. If you do this and you do it wrong, all you're going to do is drive more development, more economic activity out to the suburbs, to Delaware County, to Licking County, and you're going to make it more difficult for Columbus to have the kind of future it wants to have. So it needs a balance, and the suburbs, to be honest, are not that anxious. And also in a lot of the suburbs, like in Upper Arlington, there aren't big plots of land, unless it's the OSU golf course, to build high density, and I don't think they want to take the golf course out of there.
Pick the Scarlet or the Gray course, one of the two. Sam, you talk about the battle between the city and the suburbs. How do you make sure that each neighborhood is treated fairly, that the folks in German Village and Clintonville are successful in keeping the high rises out of their neighborhoods, but folks on Cleveland Avenue?
The way we used to do it in the old days, when Jack Huddle was director, it's called neighborhood plans. And what you did in those neighborhood plans, you get all the leaders in the community, you take the land use elements, you take the zoning elements, and you sit there for 6-7 months until you agree on a development plan for this segment of the city. And then you hold that up to everyone who comes along, this is what we agreed on.
Doesn't this plan kind of trump that now?
Well, yeah.
No, it's one size fits all for the whole city, and what you do on 161 or or Olentangy or High Street or Cleveland Avenue could be 4 different solutions. But this is basically taking one formula and applying it citywide.
See, I told you zoning was going to be interesting. It's interesting. Wait till you see these meetings. We got 2 months of these meetings coming up. Anyway, if you want to hear more about how zoning is partly to blame for our current housing crisis, you should subscribe to WOSU's new podcast called Untangled, the Housing Crisis. WOSU's Anna Staver in episode 2 untangles the long and complicated history of zoning and how it affects housing. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get to Off the Record parting shots. Sim Gresham, you're up first.
I want to remind the community that we're going to have an initiatives on the ballot this fall, and they're going to be critical. We're going to be creating a commission to draw the lines. In Ohio, Democrats are about the same number as Republicans. Because of gerrymandering, Republicans have greater power. We want to balance that.
Terry.
My prediction is in the future we'll be talking about abortion in U.S. Senate. Amazingly, for the first time in weeks, we haven't talked much about either one. The Senate race is going to be big and hot. The abortion issue, that's in question because Ohio voted twice last year basically to uphold abortion rights. So will that issue be as hot and salient for this year? That's in question.
Andrew.
People in Cleveland are excited about hosting the women's basketball Final Four, and I watched Caitlin Clark play the other night against LSU for Iowa. They're going to play there. She's going to play there, and I recommend people check it out because I watched her. I'm a big basketball fan, and I'm not saying anything new, but I was very impressed with how good she is. It's very entertaining.
Those games are fun to watch. Jesse Balmer.
Yeah, so kind of on a sadder note, Thursday marked the funeral for former state representative Bridget Kelly, who just served the Cincinnati area with a lot of kindness and integrity and bipartisanship, and maybe the Ohio State House could use a little more of that.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers to her family. I predict that politicians will still use their phones to text messages, and some days those text messages will come back to haunt them. They won't be watching these memes and say, I shouldn't do that. Anyway, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook, and you can watch us anytime on your time at our website, wosu.org/COTR. You can also watch us on YouTube and the PBS video app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.